Good evening, everyone. Severe Weather Team 9 meteorologist Nathan John here for this edition of Nate at 8. And starting off the work week with, well, a lot of the same that we saw last week. More of these showers and thunderstorms in the afternoon and evening. And tomorrow will feature a lot of the same in terms of more showers and thunderstorms, but a bit different timing. It's going to be more morning and afternoon rather than the afternoon and evening. And from there, we get further changes then as we go throughout this week. And overall, this week is a lot of differences with respect to what we had for last week for this week, even though, again, I know still starting off today with more of those showers and thunderstorms, which do stick around as we go through Tuesday. We'll see them even carry over here early on tonight and again redeveloping tomorrow morning, continuing into tomorrow afternoon. Overall, less humid stretch of weather for a lot of this week. We'll notice that humidity drop off tomorrow night into Wednesday, and then it's not refreshing, but it's certainly more tolerable. And we go from unbearably humid to tolerable, and it may feel pretty pleasant to us, really, even though dew points are still into the 60s. You'll notice that drop in humidity likely by the middle of this week, and that sets up then a drier stretch into our holiday weekend. So again, there's certainly a lot of differences with respect to last week, looking ahead for this week, and we'll dive into a lot of those differences coming up for this edition of Nate at 8. Starting off with those temperatures, which are in the 70s, but it's certainly not comfortable 70s, is it? We're dealing with those dew points right now, which are residing in the 70s, and it's just unbearably humid. So despite our temperatures already falling in the 70s, we're likely not going to cool a whole lot more as we go through the night into tomorrow morning. So anticipate about a handful of degrees of cooling. It's warm, muggy tonight. It is certainly warm and muggy this evening as well. And that's, again, not going to change as we go through the night into tomorrow morning, as we're still dealing with those dew points in the 70s. And even for tomorrow, it's still going to be a rather humid day. Notice there at 8 p.m. Tuesday, notice that that line starts to drop into Wednesday. So that's when we start to notice that drop in these dew points, which will be back more mid 60s range and even some lower 60s in the mix. So that is, it's still a bit humid to muggy, but coming off of instant sweat or unbearably humid, it is certainly still a noticeable drop in that humidity going into Wednesday. And that will stick around likely into our 4th of July on Friday. It starts to creep back up this week. And I think Sunday's the next day where it'll start to turn unbearably humid again. So that being said, it's still a decent stretch where at least the humidity is more tolerable, likely going into Wednesday. And then again, continuing likely through Saturday. By Sunday, it does look to turn unbearably humid again. So by the time we get in the holiday weekend, humidity picks up, and likely our temperatures will a bit as well. But for a lot of the stretch, not only dealing with the lower humidity levels, but a lot of 80s in the mix. We can't get back closer to 90 with the unbearably humid conditions by this weekend. Again, especially by Sunday is when we'll notice that more unbearably humid conditions in place. Right now, we're still tracking some showers and thunderstorms across the area. Torrential downpours, gusty winds. That's been the story from a lot of what we've seen. If you've noticed that the thunderstorm pass over your location, you've likely noticed that, right? Winds picking up and just some very heavy downpours. We've been noticing rainfall rates 1 to 2 and even at times in excess of 3 inches per hour. That is a very heavy rainfall present in the region. The good news is, though, that these thunderstorms, they have not been over the same location for an hour, right? So we have not been dealing with 2, 3 or more inches over a location because these are progressing fast enough. They're not sitting over the same location for an hour. So some high rainfall rates, but thankfully these have been moving fast enough that has kept that flooding risk low. And that theme will continue here from what does remain for this evening. The severe risk is thankfully looking low as well. So our potential for impacts at this point this evening are looking low. But as we jump into just the one area to watch, it's still dealing with this cluster of thunderstorms looking to portions of Tuscarawas, Carroll, Columbiana County. If we look at what radar is estimated for rainfall amounts, still dealing with some heavy rain, close to 2 inches per hour, looking into the western part of Carroll County, eastern part of Carroll County, even over 2 inches per hour. So again, certainly, and you probably noticed this at times, when it's raining and it's a heavy downpour with these thunderstorms as this progresses through northern Tuscarawas through Carroll, Columbiana County. So we'll be impacting northern and Jefferson, likely staying north of the Steubenville, Wintersville area. a shower for those locations now, but this cluster of thunderstorms likely staying north of those locations, eventually moving towards East Liverpool, Wellsville locations. And if we even zoom in a little bit more, locations towards Toronto, north towards Stratton, Empire, moving through Amsterdam. Those are the locations to watch. Again, more northern Jefferson, north of Steubenville and Weirton area, and then looking closer towards East Liverpool, Columbiana County. That's where we're going to watch this cluster of thunderstorms progress east. Really outside of that, there's some showers to deal with, but that's really it. The activity closer to and south of I-70, some showers continuing at this hour for this evening. In terms of the wind speeds, we'll look at what radar is estimated. There's been some gusty winds in addition to some very heavy downpours. We're dealing with what radar is estimated. These wind gusts are still about 30, 40 miles per hour. So roughly, those are some gusty winds certainly still present from what we're seeing here with this cluster of thunderstorms. So again, some gusty winds, some torrential downpours. That's what we'll likely notice with this. But thankfully, we have not been seeing these wind speeds reach in excess of 55 or 60 miles per hour. So we haven't not had those damaging winds, but still some gusty winds present with these thunderstorms today, in addition to just some very heavy downpours. But thankfully, again, moving fast enough that is keeping that flooding risk low for our area. But we're still monitoring what does remain in our region. Again, nothing thankfully is really threatening, more imminent, but we're still watching what does remain with these showers and thunderstorms across the region. And again, thankfully, we're not dealing with a high risk for severe weather or any flooding, but we'll still monitor. And really, again, at this point, keeping a close eye more on what's moving through Carroll, Columbiana, northern Jefferson, and as well as Hancock County. That's what we're currently dealing with. Cluster of thunderstorms as it's progressing towards the east into a portion of our area. So that's what we're watching. Again, thankfully, that these have been moving fast enough. The flooding risk has been low, and we have had gusty winds, but nothing that has prompted some damaging winds into our area for this evening. Also, good evening. Today was okay. It rained here around 6. Definitely heard the thunder while watching the rain downpour like crazy. We're going to see another downpour tomorrow, and yes, we're going to get into that. We can see some more downpours tomorrow, Austin. Good evening, Joe. And thanks for keeping us safety aware. You're welcome, James. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you all for tuning in. Appreciate it as always, joining me for this edition of Nate at 8. So that's where we stand. Again, currently just watch for that very heavy downpour, some gusty winds moving through Carroll, Columbiana, northern Jefferson, Hancock County. That's where to watch right now near term. Again, more of a shower activity outside of that, further south towards I-70 and south of I-70. Things are going to start to wind down here for this evening. We'll see a few of these can carry over here early on tonight, but we'll likely notice a drying trend for the overnight hours. So we can see at least a few of these showers and thunderstorms this evening continue up towards midnight. It's possible for something isolated, but then notice as we get into the second half of tonight, then we'll notice that what does remain tapers off. So again, maybe still something isolated continuing up towards midnight. So Todd, maybe something isolated continuing up towards midnight, but activity is going to start to wind down now at this point as we go throughout the remainder of this evening. So activity will start to gradually diminish, likely at this point leading up closer to midnight, and then will likely dry up for the second half of the night into early tomorrow morning. But unlike what we've seen for a lot of this past week, we're likely not waiting until the afternoon to see more showers and thunderstorms develop tomorrow. So this is something I'd watch even late morning for these scattered showers and thunderstorms developing and then continuing through midday and in the afternoon. And by the evening, by this time tomorrow, we're likely seeing a lot of this activity wrap up. So we'll see a drying trend likely by even the evening hours on Tuesday in the wake of a cold front passage, a decrease in cloud cover behind it, and I think a pretty good setup for some fog developing for Wednesday morning. We can see some areas of fog for Wednesday morning's commute, but not tracking any precipitation. And again, at this point, we notice that it's finally more tolerable for our humidity levels. High temperatures around the mid 80s, likely staying dry for our Wednesday. And we'll see a good amount of sunshine likely Wednesday as well. Then as we look ahead going into Thursday, we'll be watching that potential, I think, is there for something more isolated developing in the afternoon or evening. But again, overall, I think we are settling into a drier stretch of weather coming our way as we go into the holiday weekend. So what remains for impacts? Well, again, for this evening, I think that potential for any damaging winds or any flooding concerns is low. Again, at this point, we're noticing this activity start to gradually taper off here early on tonight. As far as for tomorrow, it doesn't look like we're dealing with a lot of impacts. Maybe still dealing with a strong to severe thunderstorm. And the reasoning why you're seeing this outlined here more into the areas further southeast into the region. So this includes Tyler, Wetzel, Marshall, Monroe, portion of Belmont and Ohio County. This is the timing of the front. So these areas that are shaded in green in our region that I just mentioned, this is where if the front can linger over a portion of the area in the afternoon and these storms can start to tap into more of that daytime heating, there is a potential for some high winds maybe within some of these thunderstorms. That would be something to watch for. Again, this is not a high risk scenario, under the level 1 where it'd be more isolated, short-lived, limited intensity in terms of any severe thunderstorms we do deal with, but that potential is there. Just the timing of the front. So, the front can linger over a portion of the region in the afternoon hours. And again, the best chance for that likely in these areas shaded green: Tyler, Wetzel, Marshall, Monroe, Belmont, and Ohio County. So those are the areas to watch, and even maybe into portion of Brooke County. But those are the areas to watch for tomorrow, further southeast into the region, where there's going to be a little higher risk for maybe an isolated strong to severe thunderstorm. Now, overall, the best chance for severe weather is even well towards our east, areas even further out ahead of that cold front for tomorrow. By no means we're anticipating a lot of severe weather tomorrow. It's not the case, but it can't quite be ruled out for a strong to severe thunderstorm that could linger into tomorrow afternoon. Just something to watch and monitor. Again, nothing that's a big risk or a widespread concern as we go throughout Tuesday. And I think that's a similar story to that potential for some localized flooding. I think we'll have to watch for that as well. I think, we had a little higher risk for that today with respect to the severe weather. And I think that can be the same story tomorrow. I know not coming to fruition for today, but for tomorrow could very well have to watch a little bit closer for that potential for localized flooding with respect to the potential for a strong to severe thunderstorm. Yes, one more time, we have to monitor both going through the morning and afternoon hours this time instead of the afternoon and evening. But once we get past this round by tomorrow evening, again, this is when we settle into a quieter stretch of weather. Doesn't mean completely dry, but certainly a lot drier with respect to this past week, where we could spot that shower and thunderstorm into these afternoon and evenings. I don't think it can be ruled out for Thursday or into the 4th of July and Friday. I don't think it could be ruled out, but it's not a high risk. These not a high chance, right? It's more isolated where it's a possibility of that pop-up shower and thunderstorm. There could be some of us that, pick up a round of rain between Thursday and Friday, but I think a lot of us can stay dry for both Thursday as well as Friday. By Saturday, I think we cut off that chance more, and then it picks back up on Sunday. So yes, I know there's a lot of those icons there with a thunderstorm, but overall, I think that these days end up mostly dry. I think it ends up completely dry Wednesday, and I think Saturday can end up completely dry and still looking mostly dry Thursday, Friday, and then Sunday into Monday is when chances can further pick up, just like what we're seeing for tomorrow. So maybe have to up that rain chance for the second half of the weekend, but at least for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, I think those days are mostly, if not completely dry. And then I could see it turning a bit more wet later into the weekend, Sunday, and then continuing into early next week. That also coincides again when it starts to turn unbearably humid on us again by Sunday, and highs will be back near 90. So it'll feel well in the 90s likely Sunday and into Monday of next week. So I know there's a lot of those, storm icons on the screen, but just keep in mind that those days are still mostly dry, if not completely dry. There's no guarantee. It's just a chance for that shower and thunderstorm popping up in the afternoon, evening hours on Thursday, Friday. Nothing to cancel plans over into the 4th of July. Just something to keep in mind, to be mindful of, and keep an eye on the sky for any outdoor plans you do have during that stretch. And I think we can cut out those chances Saturday, but they'll likely return on Sunday. So that's just what to watch for as we go into the weekend. But overall, again, a lot drier stretch. We're not tracking a lot of these showers and thunderstorms developing in the afternoon and evening like what we've had as of recent. The activity stays much, much more hit or miss if we do see something stray pop up into Thursday and Friday. So not a whole lot of precipitation, but we'll certainly still watch for at least that potential for a shower and thunderstorm developing in the afternoon and evening. Once we get past more of these showers and thunderstorms, which are likely for a Tuesday, again, the emphasis is into the latter part of the morning as well as the afternoon. Then activity should start to wind down around the evening, and then looking dry Wednesday, looking dry Saturday, and then I think activity and rain chances will further pick up Sunday into Monday. Better odds for those showers and thunderstorms, I think, coming our way later this weekend into early next week. Asa says, can't believe that today is the final day of June. It's hard to believe, isn't it? Let's pray that July will be a lot kinder than June, and especially in terms of those temperatures, huh, Austin? Yeah, it's hard to believe. And as we start the month and Mother Nature finally gives us some relief from that humidity. But I think, we could get a taste of what we just came out of, at least for a couple of days, looking ahead later into the weekend and into early next week. Good evening, Lola. Thanks for tuning in to this edition of Nate at 8 Summer Pop-Up Storms. Got to love it. Yep, can't be ruled out, unfortunately. Again, it's one of the situations where most of us can stay dry, but just something to keep in mind for that shower and thunderstorm. Again, don't cancel plans over it. Just something to keep in mind. Just be mindful that, keeping a little eye in the sky. Noticing the sky's getting a bit dark. Download your other T9 mobile app, jump on radar, make sure you don't have a storm heading your way for any outdoor plans that you have on Friday. It's just, be mindful, right? Be mindful of the weather. Again, I think a lot of us can stay dry that stretch from Wednesday through Saturday. I think a little more of us than getting wet Sunday. And then I think chances further pick up early next week. And yes, I think most of us getting wet tomorrow, especially late morning into the afternoon hours with the showers and thunderstorms with the cold front passage. So most of us getting wet tomorrow, but after that, I think most of us can stay dry. Highs around the mid upper 80s. It's warm, nothing real excessive into the 4th of July, but it does turn hot this weekend. And again, by Sunday, it's unbearably humid. So by Sunday, I think it'll start to feel well in the 90s. And that's where the heat starts to get a bit excessive again on Sunday. And that'll likely carry over into next week. Mandy says, sky's looking a bit dark here near East Springfield. And Mandy, you've got joining us this evening, and we've been tracking what was remaining with these showers and thunderstorms. And before we wrap things up, we can go back to looking at that and jump back to radar. And a lot of us really at this point dealing, especially closer to and south of I-70, you can see some showers, and they're still continuing to actually taper off. Just the one area we're watching, the cluster of thunderstorms moving through Columbiana as well as Carroll, what was northern Tuscarawas, is getting ready to move, like Mandy was mentioning there, near Springfield. And it's on your doorstep there in northern Jefferson County. We're going to be watching that push east in the region. Just something to watch for with this. What you'll likely notice are some, very heavy downpours. You can see some gusty winds. That's mainly what to watch for this. This is moving fast enough that while it is likely going to produce some very heavy downpours, it's not going to remain over your location that long. So thankfully, the flooding risk looks low, even despite dealing with some heavy rain. We can see what radar is estimated for some of this rain moving in. Yeah, that's some very heavy rain. How about that? Around a little over 3 inches per hour rainfall rate, the radar estimating there into the eastern part of Carroll County. Heavy downpour. I mean, really a torrential downpour as it does pass. But, thankfully, it doesn't linger too long over the location. So very heavy rain, but doesn't last too long. So still looking at a low flooding risk with this as it passes. And in addition to that, we've been dealing with some gusty winds. We can check out what radar is estimating for wind speeds with this. In general, we've been dealing with about 30, 40 mile per hour. And yeah, this looks like roughly what it's estimating for a lot of that. So 30, 40 mile per hour winds, some gusty winds. Winds will pick up with it. Some, torrential downpours, some gusty winds as it passes. I'll still monitor it, but should anticipate low flooding concern. And right now, some gusty winds. Thankfully, we haven't seen these storms mature to the extent of becoming severe. I think we've been close at times going in throughout this evening, but thankfully has not come to fruition yet. We've been close, but thankfully hasn't come to fruition. And we'll monitor what does remain. Again, that's certainly not a high-risk scenario from what does remain across our area, but that's the one region we're going to continue to watch. That's northern Jefferson, Hancock County. This is likely going to stay. It'll move close through Scio. Could very well get clipped by some of this heavy rain. in Scio. But a lot of this is going to stay even north of Steubenville, Wintersville. Again, maybe getting clipped by it, maybe noticing, rain picking up there near Steubenville, Wintersville. But the core of that heavier rain and gusty winds are likely most of it staying north of Steubenville and Wintersville towards New Cumberland, Toronto, looking towards Burgos and Stratton, Empire, Irondale. These Amsterdam locations more in northern Jefferson, then looking into Hancock County. This is where we're noticing that the bulk of this heavier rain and gusty winds remain as this passes, as this moves further to the east. And again, thankfully, not coming to fruition in terms of severe weather concerns or flooding concerns throughout this evening. Certainly good. I think we'll have to keep weather aware again tomorrow. Again, not to say that we're dealing with widespread severe weather or flooding concerns. I don't think that's the case. I think if we do see it, it's more isolated, right? I think most of us can get by tomorrow without those impacts occurring, but just have to monitor things again tomorrow as we go through the latter part of the morning, and especially in the afternoon where thunderstorms do remain. They start to tap into a little more of that daytime heating in the afternoon, and could deal with maybe a strong to severe thunderstorm, maybe some localized flooding. Just something we'll still continue to closely monitor throughout tomorrow. By this time tomorrow, then things really start to wind down. We should be tracking at this point, even starting to see some decrease in cloud cover. So we should be, for tomorrow's edition of Nate at 8, not only tracking that into the rain, but actually starting to track decrease in cloud cover going into Wednesday that can then yield some foggy start going into your Wednesday with some areas of fog for the morning commute, but not a whole lot of precipitation around. And again, that marks then the start of a less humid stretch of weather that we'll see in place for a lot of this week. By Sunday is when that humidity can start to pick up closer to values today. But, at least we have likely going through Saturday, while it's still, it's still a bit muggy. It's still, I would say it's refreshing, but it certainly will be noticeably lower. It's more tolerable for humidity levels for a lot of this week. But by Sunday, it gets back to being unbearably humid, and likely we'll be back to dealing with some hot weather as well. Highs will be back closer to 90 this weekend, and will be well in the 90s when you factor in the unbearably humid conditions that likely return by Sunday. So at least until that point, we get some relief from these unbearably humid conditions, and already seeing some relief from in terms of the real hot conditions, but still unbearably humid. It's just a warm, muggy this evening, and that's going to stay that way overnight, and still rather muggy for tomorrow. But tomorrow night to Wednesday is when we'll notice that further drop in dew points, and we'll notice more tolerable humidity levels than Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and even into Saturday. It'll start to pick up then likely, and just be unbearably humid, I think, again by Sunday of this weekend. We can see dew points pick back up this weekend, and it can be unbearably humid by Sunday, and that can carry over into early next week. Temperatures mid-upper 80s, I think, for a lot of the stretch. It could be mid-lower 80s tomorrow, and then about mid-upper 80s Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, upper 80s, closer to 90 on Saturday, and likely around 90 on Sunday. So still very warm to hot stretch of weather. It's not real cool, but the further drop is what we'll notice, and not so much a big drop in temperatures, but a bigger drop in that humidity before it does pick back up. So, and nice. I know it's not a big relief from the heat and humidity, but we'll certainly take what we can get coming off of last week. And this week will not be as bad as last week for that heat and humidity. Not as bad. And again, not as wet either. We'll deal with those showers and thunderstorms. I think we can see some at times, but not a whole lot. After tomorrow, looking ahead going into the weekend. Once we get past these showers and thunderstorms tomorrow, then it's not a real wet stretch of weather Wednesday into the holiday weekend. But I do think at times we can notice that pop-up shower and thunderstorm in the afternoon and evening. And I would say the days to watch for that is more so Thursday into Friday. And I think Saturday we can stay free of those, and then picking back up on Sunday. And I know there's a lot of those storm icons on the 9+1 day forecast, but just know what we have here near term. It's still mostly dry and possibly completely dry in our area. It's just we can't quite roll out that shower and thunderstorm potential of at least something popping up in our area into Thursday and into the 4th of July and Friday. I think we could stay clear of that Wednesday, but I think that potential is there into Thursday. it can linger into Friday, and then we can get a break from that Saturday, but then chances can further pick up Sunday into Monday, where it becomes more likely to deal with those scattered showers and thunderstorms into the afternoon and evening. Good evening there, Sean. Will dew points be up this week? And thankfully, Sean, we get some relief from those dew points this week. Thankfully, it's not as humid. It's more tolerable for a lot of this week. Once we get past this evening and tonight, still unbearably humid. It's a warm, muggy night ahead. But once we get tomorrow night into Wednesday, that's when we'll notice as dew points start to drop, and then it's more tolerable going through the 4th of July. Likely pick back up this weekend, and especially by Sunday, it could be back to being unbearably humid. And I think Sunday into Monday will present the next best chance for showers and thunderstorms once we get past Tuesday. So again, that stretch of Wednesday into Saturday looks mostly dry, if not completely dry. And then by Sunday into Monday, I think we can see those chances pick back up. Better odds for those showers and thunderstorms developing in the afternoon and evening hours once we get past Tuesday. So yes, fairly quiet stretch of weather. Most of that stretch from Wednesday into Saturday will likely be dry, and then chances will further pick up Sunday into Monday. Better odds for those showers and thunderstorms coinciding with unbearably humid conditions likely returning, and hot conditions as well. Highs back around 90, feel well in the 90s when you factor in that humidity by Sunday continuing into Monday. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in. I appreciate it as always. Hopefully everyone's been able to stay cool during this just hot, humid stretch of weather. And again, thankfully, not as bad for looking this week ahead. And a lot of these days likely for this week will end up, mainly, if not completely dry, especially once we get past tomorrow. The rest of the week does look a lot drier. Again, the showers and thunderstorms that are still in place this evening will taper off here early on tonight. Likely we'll set up then for a drier stretch into the latter part of tonight, but activity will pick back up late tomorrow morning. So we'll notice, especially after the morning commute, likely picking up into midday. So it's not afternoon, evening hours tomorrow. It's mainly morning and afternoon. So it's a bit earlier timing for those scattered showers and thunderstorms tomorrow. So just keep that in mind. If you plan on trying to have lunch outside, you could very well be dealing with those showers and thunderstorms in place for midday, continuing then into the drive home. But by the time we get to around this time tomorrow, a lot of this activity should be tapering off. And at that point, we'll see that drier stretch of weather begin into Wednesday. That will carry over going into the holiday weekend. Pleasure as always. You can catch me coming up on News 9 at 10 on Fox 9. News 9 tonight at 11 for the latest. And until then, I hope everyone has a great night, and I'll see you tomorrow evening for that next edition of Nate at 8.